Good morning. Good morning, everyone. GM, and welcome to another episode of FOMO Hour. Today is Monday, April 7th, 2025. Folks, we thought it might be Black Monday. We had Black Thursday and Black Friday and then Black Sunday night. It was setting us up for a rough start to the week. Global markets crashing, U.S. equities hitting bear market territory. Crypto was following, but now Trump's telling everyone, don't be panicking. And markets are starting to respond. The question is, can we trust him or should we be panicking? We're going to break it all down on today's show. No Farouk, he is traveling today, but we got Mando in the house. Mando, GM, how you holding up?
I'm holding up okay. Yeah, I'm holding up okay. I've actually traded pretty well the last few days. So I've been relatively happy with how I did it.
Nice.
But yeah, luckily we started bouncing as soon as the show went live. Otherwise, it was looking to be a very stressed opening day of the week for us. We can get into all that, but yeah.
We will. The tone of the show, quite different, starting at 10 a.m. versus had we started at 9:30.
Yes,
so
very different.
You were tuning into a very different episode of FOMO Hour. Folks, it is going to be a tighter show here this morning, but we are going to talk everything about these markets. Stocks are falling Sunday night. It looks like they're starting to rebound despite Asia markets having, I think, one of their worst days of all time. We had folks crashing out on the timeline, including Bill Ackman, JP Morgan raising their recession odds. Stanley Druckenmiller are actually coming out and defending tariffs to a degree. And then Trump has started to respond more and more here yesterday and now this morning. So we're going to talk about that. Crypto's potential relative strength. Does anything look like a buy? Or are we still selling all of the pumps? And more. So that's what we're going to talk about on today's show. Before we dive in, shout out to our partners, starting with Galaxis. Galaxis is a Web3 platform empowering creators and brands to build unstoppable communities with full ownership and independence, trusted by icons like Donald Trump, Steve Aoki, Mike Tyson, and the NBA, shaping together the future of engagement. And Wallet Connect is the connectivity network shaping the future of on-chain UX. If you've connected to a Web3 app, you've seen Wallet Connect. That blue logo, it's everywhere, an icon of trust in crypto, as recognizable as Visa at the checkout. So if you want to learn more, follow at Wallet Connect on X and Telegram to stay ahead of what's next. We love our partners as always. Now, Mando, if you're ready, let's get right into it.
Who is the man, macro daddy of the land? Can you dig it?
GM, everyone. So yeah, we had a pretty wild weekend, to be honest. Crypto had been outperforming for a little bit. Obviously on Friday it was. And then what you started to see on Friday was that everyone was like, oh, we've had this good correlation to gold. Even gold started to sell off. So there was kind of this, oh God, everything's about to nuke sort of market here. And crypto seemingly got caught up in that as well. So you saw gold go down to 3K from, where was it, about 3,100, 3,200 nearly. And you saw global stock. I think there was an expectation on Friday that maybe deals would get done over the weekend. Maybe there'd be a deal done with the UK, with Canada, with Japan. Like maybe they'd be light at the end of the tunnel for these sort of deals. And it just didn't seem to be the case. In fact, Trump's made some comments last night, which is like Europe owes the US reparations for previous trade deficits. And it felt like they were maybe even drifting apart. This morning, you've seen a slight softening from certain points. So you saw Europe said, hey, we're actually going to delay our retaliatory tariffs until later this month. And then they said, and leave the door open maybe for a deal to be done. You saw that Japan's prime minister said they'd had a call with the US, and maybe that could lead to a deal. We saw that, just a general like slight softening, or at least indication that there could still be a route open for deals. Not really from Trump, but from other people, let's say. and some indications, from people in the administration that countries are reaching out. We had the figure that 50 countries had reached out for deals. And I think everyone just felt slightly better about the market after that. This morning we were selling off, and then there was a headline first thing, which was a little bit of a bounce, which is probably the bottom looking back at it, which is that the Fed is holding a meeting today. That is actually a fairly standard meeting for them. So I wouldn't read too much into it, although they have done special meetings like that around COVID and also around the SVB collapse, 2 years ago. It doesn't look like that's what's happening today, but undeniably, I'm sure they'll be talking about what's going on in the stock market and broadly. This was up until now, like rest of world stocks have broadly outperformed US stocks. Today was the day that changed. So Chinese stocks closed down 13% in Hong Kong. DAX was down 10%. Various different European stock indexes were down 5 to 10%. It was definitely a bloodbath kind of across the board. And I think people were definitely feeling it this morning and wondering how it's going to get fixed. You did see, now what I've been saying is that the response to this has to be stimulus. And I think that's what we're going to see. I think we're going to see, already China said we're going to do some sort of extra stimulus package this morning. And so this idea that global liquidity will go higher feels likely to me. And we're going to see money printing to kind of help deal with the issues. So yeah, I think I'm not feeling as bad about stuff this morning. At least I can see we can have a relief rally. I don't think we're out of the woods by any means. Like Trump is still pointing to the idea that there should be no trade deficits between countries, and I feel like his base is also kind of like they're kind of behind him on this. Like weirdly, the story has kind of changed to lowering tariffs to like this being a way to like redistribute wealth, and it actually feels like that's like empowering the Trump base. So I don't necessarily think that I've been thinking a lot about why this is happening.
Yeah.
And for me, it feels as though there's been a kind of implicit decision that one of the only ways to improve income inequality in the US is to try and basically cut trade deficits with external countries rather than tax the rich. And that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, no, I think that's fairly spot on. And I'm in a similar thought. I've spent most of the weekend thinking about this and like, what are the scenarios from here? And I don't think there's really any scenario where Trump just like totally backs down and reverses course. I think perhaps the optimistic outcome is he truly was using these absurd numbers as a negotiation tactic and tries to, win the negotiations here and get down to 10%, 20% more, somewhat more reasonable level. It's still going to have an impact. But I mean, I think even that's in question, right? Like,
I'm not sure if he wants to do that. I've been debating this a little bit, like, and I use Vietnam because it's a good example, but like, the general thesis seems to be that, like, let's say there's a group of people that live in the countryside and a group of people that live in a big mega city like New York, right? And the basis of this is that do you think there should be zero trade balance between those two people? It seems natural that like the country would import more than exports back to the countryside, let's say, or where there's cheaper labor. Now how this is working is basically saying there should be no trade deficit between the two of them. If there is, we're going to tax you. And that puts a country like Vietnam, like it can't import enough to fix that sort of an issue. And there seems to be like expectation that actually we kind of want to do some of the stuff that's going on in the countryside in the big mega city like New York. Like, hey, actually we want to do that too. And I think that's kind of what's going on here. It's more like they want to actually redistribute the wealth inside the US a little bit more. And that is quite a popular thing with Trump's base and with a lot of people. And at other times that's tried to happen, it's like we're gonna basically tax the wealthy, and that is seen as kind of like a kind of at odds with the American dream, I would say, or like it's seen as like, you know, it goes in against incentives. But this way, where basically you just tax anyone who has a trade deficit with the US, everyone doesn't necessarily do better in that scenario. Like everyone can actually do a little bit worse in that scenario, but the US is the strongest economy by far, best demographics, biggest military, like easily has the most firepower to deal with this. So it's kind of one of these worlds where I think the bet here is that the US will do better than every other country if this happens. Like I would say global wealth may come down in that world, but you also get a situation where the US redistributes its wealth in a certain way. So, and I think that's kind of what MAGA's changing well, not really changing, but that like they're fine with that. So I don't think Trump's backing down on this. I think this is kind of like, I think he kind of wants this.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he said as much. I mean, he came out and said our intention was not to crash markets, but also that sometimes you got to take medicine. And like they've been saying there could be some pain. I'm in a lot. People have been trying to digest this over the weekend. Some are saying like, at what point would we see civil unrest, perhaps, in the U.S.? But I think you kind of nailed it. I don't know that we are very close to that scenario at all, because the people most disproportionately impacted are the wealthiest, right? And they're not going to be the ones who take to the streets. And I don't think most people are they're not impacted yet. I think it's still to be seen. Give me one quick second here. But
yeah, I think that's basically what's going on. I think he might win people over this way. It's definitely an America first policy, and it does affect multinational corporations quite badly. But again, like a lot of people in the US don't like multinational corporations. And there's all other attempts to kind of solve income inequality are generally seen as they're not as popular. It's a weird notion, but like taxing the rich is far less popular than taxing foreign countries. And even though the tax on foreign countries can reduce your everyone's economic wealth, including the US, more, the concept is that is one of the best ways potentially to reduce income inequality in the US. And I see it, like I see it from more right-wing commentators that like this is the narrative suddenly. It's like, hey, we've actually fixed income inequality more than like the left has for like 50 years here, right? Yes. And that's something that is actually a little bit popular. So I kind of feel as though this can continue, and I don't think he's in a rush to make deals.
Yeah, I think.
But what's this mean for Bitcoin and crypto? I think it's as I've said before.
Yeah.
I think this is going to lead to massive stimulus, which is already happening, and I think that there's potentially also an erosion of dollar power in this world, or at least like all fiat currency power, I feel can be slightly diminished here. Like if free trade is diminished in this world, then you can imagine that, yeah, like few people need dollars, few people want to borrow in dollars, fewer people want to do that in various different countries if that gets diminished. So I'm I think crypto can still do well. I really do. I was surprised that it traded badly this weekend, but you have to remember it's the most risk on asset that is 24/7. So people go in and they're like, need to short it on a weekend,
This is sorry. I literally exclaimed when I went back to the crypto board, folks, because this is not quite the rebound. Bitcoin back over 80K. It went sub 76 on the market open just 45 minutes ago. And now like the weekly numbers, we just had one of the worst 3-day stretches Now, of course, stocks are rebounding. The S&P flips green as well. But in U.S. equity history, and Bitcoin's down 3.5% on the week. I think that's pretty. That's a pretty strong signal. And Saylor didn't buy. He came out and said it. What a great week for Saylor not to have bought. At least, I guess perhaps for our confidence, because I think there was. Maybe we'll find out if GameStop was the one buying Friday. I think Friday was where it really felt like there was a strong bid. When it was Friday afternoon and equities kept falling off a cliff, and then Bitcoin was holding that 83K level. And I think a lot of folks thought it was either strategy or GameStop. But
I just don't think we're like, I would be don't confuse volatility with we're so back or it's so over. I think we're just in a period of very heightened, like even now, you might be like, oh my God, we're going, like we're so back. Just be aware that this is a market that is insanely volatile. Like I said it to Ovi before we went live. I was like, it just feels like we're about to bounce, just because like it's not that any good news had really come out. It's not like Trump suddenly changed his opinion. It's just like everyone just feels like they're too short. So knowing that world, like there's extremes of positions right now, and you can gap up 10% and there'd be no news, literally nothing. So I feel like that's also the world we're in. So I think Bitcoin can continue to outperform global stocks, everything here. But it had a bad weekend, and it sometimes does. Do you remember like when all the Middle Eastern wars were happening, or like flare-ups were happening? It was just like, why is Bitcoin the thing? There was a little bit of that this weekend where it was just like, right, we're just going to pummel Bitcoin into the US stock market open because everyone's freaking out. And but this is a good sign. The fact that it held that 76K level, which it's hit a few times again, is a good sign. Definitely a good sign.
I'm curious if so I've seen more and more of the bear takes that we would effectively erase the entire Trump pump on Bitcoin, basically taking us back to like 66K. Do you have any targets
on Bitcoin?
On Bitcoin, like any lower targets that you think are possible, or the levels that you feel seem safer, or curious if that's how you're looking at it, or
feels like it's a really good sign that it hit that level again, 76K. I think there'll be a lot of buy walls now that 76K level. A lot of them. I don't think we're out of the woods though. Like this feels like a relief rally rather than like, oh, something's gonna come and save us. Do you know what I mean? I think a lot of people are just so used to the COVID situation where it's just like, we're gonna turn on the taps, something fundamentally change, we're gonna save everyone. No one's coming to save this market here. It doesn't feel like it. We've just spoken about how Trump's incentives are maybe even to continue this. And we've just spoken about, and the Fed basically came out on Friday and said, we're not going to help. So your best bet here, in my opinion, is the Chinese central bank, potentially Japanese central bank, potentially European central bank, British, the British central bank, and potentially then we get we get money printing from them, or money printing by another name. It doesn't feel like the Fed wants to step in here, and that has been something that has happened since 2008, and it looks like things are gonna have to get a lot worse. And the thing that's interesting, a lot of people have been talking about the fact that, oh, he wants to get the 10-year lower. This is a day where the 10-year is higher. It's gone back to 4.1%.
Yeah.
This is going to lead to inflation. It's not easy for the Fed to come and just cut rates. Like Trump keeps on talking about that, but like, it's not easy. Jerome Powell's probably sitting there going like, I'm going to wait and see. Like, I don't want to cut rates if inflation's going to continue higher. So I'd just be wary of thinking the Fed is going to save you. I think you got to hope weirdly that you basically see money printing coming out of other countries.
I've seen totally different schools of thought. Some were saying that a rate hike is even on the cards for 2025. And then you've got like this poly market rate cut market has 5 cuts at 15% chance. Now, let's see, 4 cuts is up to 20%, 3 cuts at 20%. So folks, I think that's in line with other markets as well. That what 4 to 5 are starting to get priced in over the weekend. I thought I saw, but that's going to continue to be very volatile. I mean, clearly prices are incredibly volatile live as we're speaking. So we were over 80K. Now we're back at 78.6. So we're just bouncing all over the board. I am curious. You said you had a good weekend trading. Like, are you buying? Are you just scalping? I know Ovi came out and shared that he effectively sold an autoglyph and bought AI16Z. So he's buying some.
But I bought Fcoin on Friday, which has probably been my best trade for the weekend. And then I have just traded around some of the L1s and timed some of these moves relatively well, getting in and out. So that I've been definitely more day trading over the last, because the swings have been insane. But like the gap down from Sunday, I largely avoided. And then I bought just before we went live, and I just told you to OSF, like I was like, I think we're going to bounce here. I bought a bunch of things. So I've traded well the last few days for sure. It's probably one of my best trading periods for the last 3 months. Yeah.
Well, you love to hear it. I feel like I've been talking about this maybe too much, but this Fcoin strength is just like insane to see. We're having global market meltdowns, and
it's
limit
good
orders, like circuit breakers are being hit.
Yeah, it's good that it's returned to the common, like FinTwit, right? It's definitely being spoken about on FinTwit again a lot more, which I think is just interesting, because it was a period where it was just like, oh, okay, it's over. But now, like, it's like, oh my God, Fcoin is the one thing outperforming the S&P 500, and that's a great story again. So,
yeah, these things die not from FUD, but in silence. Like you want the attention factor, and I mean now, like the mind share is quite is off the charts. Like Cookie's still measuring this, and they still have Fcoin in the AI bucket for what that's worth, but it's 30%.
Memes in general held up okay here, in my opinion. Yeah. SPX as well had a decent period here. He's back still at 520 or 500-ish. Those two in particular have held up very well. So
I was thinking about this a little bit over the weekend. Like, is this a sign of like financial nihilism returning to a degree? Like, oh, like markets are all fucked. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm just going to go back to the if I can't buy what considered value assets because they're all going down 5 to 8% per day, like strong stocks are doing the same. Like, why not just fire it into memes? I don't know. That's just a thought that was crossing my head as I try to wrap my head around why these memes are outperforming. And like these are the top 2 movers of the entire top 100 crypto tokens right now. It's Fcoin and SPX. So it's pretty undeniable.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really know. Like, it feels like those two in particular are just going to be like the ones, at least in the broader meme coin space. Those two have been like chosen as the ones that like people want to own on days like today. So
yeah,
it's
I would tend to agree. The question
maybe
is, does that mean it's going to displace? Are they going to displace other traditional memes, or are they just the new additions? I think is one of the questions here. It's like, where's Mog? Mog's green today.
Mog is getting destroyed.
Yeah, it was 120 million. Wow.
Yeah, Mog's been destroyed. Like, honestly, annihilated.
So perhaps there is a changing of the guard to a degree here. I think the other chart that's been absolutely destroyed is ETH Bitcoin. I don't know if you've been seeing this, but this morning it broke 0.02. It was at 0.019. It was 52 ETH for one Bitcoin. And where is the bottom? Like, are we going to see 75 to 1, 100 to 1? Are there scenarios where that happens? It's just 52 seemed like a far-fetched number. On January 1st, it was 27 to 1. And now it's 52 to 1. Try to pull this up. It's like we're just kind of running out of words to talk about this at this point in time.
Yeah. Ether is dead. It's over. I'm sorry, guys. I'm not talking about it. The amount of airtime that it gets on different shows for this, it's just painful. Like, I talk about this over all the time, but like, it's it's just not been a good hold, and it's even underperforming today, right? It's underperforming today. So sad, very sad.
It's a tough one. It's a tough for my beloved Punk's Bitcoin ratio, which got whacked in this ETH down move. The Punk floor held even, but with ETH getting crushed, Punk's back down to 63K. So now 20% below Bitcoin, more actually right now. So not exactly what we wanted to see here. I'll go around the horn. I think that's a really good summary on the market, Manuel. Thank you for that. It was a quiet weekend. I think a couple of headlines that jumped out. One, Tether basically said if the U.S. is not going to embrace USDT, they're going to launch a U.S.-friendly stablecoin. So I think that's perhaps bearish for Circle. And then Circle also is reportedly, I think this is more tied to some rumors. It hasn't been like they haven't come out and said this, but now they're thinking about delaying their IPO because of effectively because of the FUD from those Coinbase fees, and perhaps trying to get better deals lined up to make some of those financials look better.
I think it's a tough time, right? You have a period where they're trying to crash the 10-year, which is basically their business model, and then and you have crypto in general not feeling so great. They probably just don't think they can get that valuation right now. I don't think if you own Circle, I just don't really know why you're trying so desperately to IPO. Like, you've got this great business, but maybe they desperately need to get out of the stock. I don't know. Kind of feels like, do you see Tether worrying about IPOing? They make $4 billion a year. Like,
in fact,
how are you? Yeah, exactly. Do you really desperately need to sell equity in your company? Just fucking clip the coupon every single year. Live the dream. I don't feel sorry for Circle executives that missed their IPO window. Like, if you needed that, then you need to run your business differently.
I think that's a FUD angle. It's the question of why do they need to do this? Is it because they see their business model falling apart as the Trump administration tries to bring the 10-year down? Which we'll see if that's actually going to pan out for them. I guess any surprises this morning before we wrap things up? It seemed like everything was crashing. We're rebounding. It felt like interest rates spiking caught people off guard this morning. So I guess anything that surprised you, or any final thoughts as we go into this?
Just week? Interest rates. Just pay attention to Bitcoin. I think that's the main thing. Like, Bitcoin to me, I think it's probably gonna have another retest above 80K here. I'm still not of the view that something like Solana is necessarily going to be like a screaming buy for the next couple of weeks. Like, I still think that Bitcoin dominance is up again today, so it's approaching 64%. I just feel like that's an up only chart, whatever happens for the next few weeks.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I did hear Choose Rich Nick on the Nifty Show this morning talking about how he feels like Solana is actually an interesting buy with Bitcoin here, just because he felt like the downside is somewhat capped, perhaps in like the 20% range. It's like if you think 80 is a strong floor for Solana and you can buy it at 100, decent risk reward there. Just because your chance to have it scalp back to 140. I mean, SOL was 140 a week and a half ago, right? So you have a chance to catch a bigger move than Bitcoin, but it's at the same time, like, I'm not personally racing to buy Solana.
Yeah. I think it's more like this isn't just a Solana thing. This is like an L1 thing. It's like, it feels as though people are leaving crypto right now. And those stories can take a long time to come back, right? So, and it's not that I don't think Solana will dominate when they do. It's just more like, it's the same reason why ETH is like not trading that well. It's just, there's so much block space, right? So you've got to hope that like your chain stays relevant in a quiet period. And Solana, it feels as though a lot of the activity on there was more left curve as well. So I don't know. I really don't know.
I think that's fair. And also, I think watching ETH not have a successful comeback cycle here, I think, is also perhaps hurt upside of Solana, rightfully or wrongfully. Is people saying like this whole next man up, like there's always going to be a next hot chain, and maybe you aren't meant to hold these beyond their initial, big cycles. So that's a real narrative out there. So I think that's one that, we'll continue to watch, but we'll see. Is it going to be turnaround Monday, folks? I don't know. We're starting to see signs of it. So it looks like
the White House just denied that they are delaying tariffs. Okay. There was a headline that they might be delaying tariffs, but they just denied it. So we're back down again.
Yeah, we're turning around the other way. So expect more piercing volatility, I think is the takeaway. But folks, quicker show here on Monday. We will be back with a longer show tomorrow. That is it. That's going to be our show. I want to thank our listeners. I want to thank our partners as always. I want to thank Mando. We'll be back tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern. Till then, go make it a great day. Goodbye.